welcome back to the From the Terrace podcast and another edition of Champ Talk. You missed our weekend edition. We didn't have one out. Certain circumstances led to that, but we still got our predictions in, so they will be updated, and Regan will be delivering the good or the bad news. Usually bad news on my part. Anyway, before we get into the video, I'm just going to quickly shout out Subside Clothing Brand. We're going to do more of them in the future, but they got us a little FTT merch treat. Look at that. Look at that right there. FTT merch, Regan. Who would thought we'd see the day?
Big time.
Unbelievable. I'll leave their socials in the description, and we're going to be doing more of them in the future. But anyway, into another episode of Champ Talk, and there was a lovely weekend of football. A Bees got 3 points. They scored 3 goals. But we're not here to talk about them. Regan, the Friday night football that opened up the weekend's fixtures, Reading finally lost. They finally lost. Thank God for that.
Have all the teams.
I saw these memes on Twitter, and it was like, oh, finally nature's restored. Like, it's like, thank God, we've got back to normal.
Out of all the teams they've played this season, the team that they lose to is Coventry. It's a bit odd, because I predicted them in our last midweeks for them to lose to Blackburn, and then they didn't really, even though it was a closer game than quite a few expected, that they did look pretty comfortable in the end. But somehow Coventry just sprung a massive surprise. I don't think anyone could really have seen it coming, but fair play to them. But is this the beginning of the end for Reading? Because let's be honest, it was almost looking like a 3-1 until Puskas scored in one of the last minutes of the game. So
yeah,
it could be bad signs ahead for Reading. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Reading after this, because obviously, like I said, I think I predicted them to win the game, just because I think I usually do, because they're starting, they were winning games, and you can't argue with that. But Reading built a lot of their early, sort of the first 5 game success off of not conceding many goals and just nicking wins, and then they had the win against Blackburn, and they started to concede a few goals in that game. They've conceded a few again tonight. And I've always sort of stuck to the thing that I think their defence isn't good enough for a championship full-length season. And maybe we're starting to see that although they started well, those players, we've seen them before in the championship. Well, I don't believe they're good enough to be a promoted side. And we saw in that game against Coventry that I don't know, Coventry obviously played well, and you've got to give them their credit, but did they really work hard? Not work hard. Did they really have to work hard for those goals? They seemed like they were pretty naff goals. They seemed like there was a lot of lack of pressing on the ball, a lot of lack of defending the second balls from Reading. And then finally, the third goal, it was a big keeper mistake, which seemed to go unnoticed in commentary, which I thought was quite weird. They were just saying how good of a strike it was, and I thought, that was terrible by the keeper. So I think well, we'll see with the next game week fixture if Reading can bounce back, because that'll be the sign of a team who's going to get promoted or not. But I personally think we may be seeing, like we predicted earlier in the season, Reading and Bristol City, they just found different times starting to drop off.
Exactly. Yeah, because I've just looked at the match stats. So Coventry only had 4 shots on actual target throughout the game. They had 14 shots in total, but only 4 actually went towards the goal. So, and I suppose that's like basically what you said, is pointing at the defence again, that if it's actually going close to your goal and you've conceded 75% of the shots are going towards it, questions need to be asked, because they were beginning to be asked before after the Blackburn game. So now, if you're only stopping one of your shots that are actually danger to you, I think that spells problems in future.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think a lot of people, I don't know, maybe think when you see those sort of stats, and a lot of people would just say it's unlucky. But if you're conceding a lot of goals from very few shots on target, if it happens once, maybe it is unlucky. But I don't know, I can see this becoming a thing. It feels like the defence aren't great at defending the box and doing those things. And you can let people have long shots, but at the end of the day, at some point, the goals will start flying in. You can't keep allowing that. Anyway, we'll move on to the next game. And the next one, Regan, I'm going to go into one, but a team we haven't given much credit to this season. No, it's not the 2 lower sides we're going to talk about. It's actually Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough winning 1-0 against Forest. And we won't talk about Forest because we've mentioned them a lot. But we've got to give Neil Warnock his praises. They're fifth in the Championship, and that has gone. In honesty, I just looked at the scores this weekend, and then obviously do a little look at the table to see where Brentford are, and see Borough up in fifth. I couldn't believe it. Like, it's sort of gone under the radar, but it's gone under the radar. But I feel like me and you do predict them to do relatively well most weeks as well, because we have that trust in Neil Warnock, and he's a bit of an Ita Karanka, as like you've predicted 1-0s a lot. But Warnock's an upgraded version of Ita Karanka, isn't he? Because let's be honest, that Middlesbrough squad's not great. Has this early start changed what you think they could do this season? Do you think, well, maybe Warnock could do the unimaginable and get them promoted or get them into the top 6? Or do you think this is just, they're doing well now, it'll drop off again at some point?
It's very hard to tell, because I think that Neil Warnock is one of the most unpredictable managers in the EFL, because we've seen it quite a few times. We even saw it when he was Palace and QPR and teams like that. That those teams aren't really good what he's managed, and yet somehow he's done good things with them. So you have to give credit for him for that. But when I look at this Borough team and the squad they have, I'm just like, if he can somehow get that team promoted or even up there to the top 6, and I think that's a major achievement for them, because it's not a very good team. But I'm looking at the table now, and every team around them we've given really praise to in the top 10, all the way down to even Birmingham in 11th, apart from really Middlesbrough, because we don't really have much to say about Middlesbrough in games. It's just that there's not really much happens, but like you said, they go under the radar. They nick their 1-0s and their 2-1s and stuff like that, and maybe nick key draws, and they get their results at the end of the day, and that's exactly why they are where they are. So full credit to them, but it's just more woes for Forest as well. But that could coincide both ways, which leading to Middlesbrough's win is also Forest still not finding their feet yet. But I take nothing away from them, because evidently they deserve to be where they are at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to read out to this Borough side now, and I want you to maybe click through and see if there's... We've been quite harsh on the quality of their squad. I'm looking at it now, and I mean, I'm still not for promotion. I'm not for top 6. It's still early days. But there's a few names in there that I think you are... Pick out... I'm going to read it out, and you pick out a few names in there where you think that these are players that could be promotion players, could be up there in the league. You've got Marcus Bettinelli in goal, someone you know. We have in the back line, we have Dykestills, we have Wood, we have McNair, we have Bowler, we have Johnny Howson, we have Sam Morsey, we have George Saville, we have Tavernier, we have Britta Sombalonga, and we have Johnson and Coulson. We've got on the bench, we've got the likes of Patrick Roberts and Lewis Wing as well. Is there any players in that squad that you think, yeah, they're maybe the whole squad's not up to the standard, but is there players in there who you think they're a damage to the Championship, they're promotion players?
I believe there's quite a few in there that I wouldn't say damage to the Championship, but don't get me wrong, they're up there and probably like the top 25% of players in the Championship that can impact these sides. I'm looking, Patrick Roberts is, even though he's coming off the bench, he's a very impactful player when he gets it. George Saville, I'm saying that I think he's been one of the best midfielders in the Champ, and quite underrated for quite a while now. And I don't think he gets much praise. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think he maybe deserves a move to those lower Premier League teams just because of the quality he's shown some games. Britta Sombalonga, I think, is quite underrated actually, because you just see him grab his goals, and you don't really mix his name in with those players higher up than him. He grabs key goals. I don't think many people realise that. But then you have Paddy McNair, who's, I've got to say, even those years ago, he did do a job every so often for Manchester United when he did play, even in cups and stuff like that. And Bettinelli has that, well, not very good Premier League experience, but he does have playoff experience. He does have playoff winning experience. And even though I'm probably biased to say that I think the past 2 seasons he's been one of the worst goalies that Fulham have ever had, just because he's been so poor. In a team like Middlesbrough, and I could see him do well with Neil Warnock and players like that. So they're just a few players that I think they could really rely on and get the backing of them and get the inspiration from the rest of the players from there. Who knows?
Yeah, for me, you know what? I look at that squad and I think, other than Britta Sombalonga, they do lack a real attacking threat. Assombalonga has suffered from. I mean, that guy would have been in the Premier League. I think people rated him a few years ago, and injuries and that haven't really served him well, and he has struggled. But when he has played, he has scored the goals, like you said. But the players that sort of, I think the best thing about that Middlesbrough team is back four's okay, good goalkeeping, Bettinelli. I think the forward line and the wingers leave a lot to be desired. But it's the midfield, okay? You got names in there. George Saville, like you said, I think I've known him from his time at Brentford. He was good at Millwall. Not a player that sets the world alight, but underrated and gives you consistent performances a lot of the time. And speaking of consistency, you have those two who sit behind you. Johnny Howson is about as consistent as it gets in the Championship. He's a very good player. Could easily cut it in the Premier League. And Sam Morsey, I think, is one of the most under-the-radar signings of the summer. Like, Wigan got raided, and we know that, but no one really mentioned Sam Morsey. I would have had at Brentford. He's an unbelievable midfielder. He's hard tackler, spreads the play really well. You can always rely on him. Might get a red card every now and then, but Sam Morsey, great player. So I think that's where they're winning games here. I think Middlesbrough giving very little away in that midfield, which means the defence, which I don't think is amazing, is having less to do. And that's how their profit results, clean sheets, they're getting them. They're not conceding loads of goals. Middlesbrough are looking a good team at the moment, and they're doing exactly what you'd expect from a Neil Warnock side. Anyway, let's move on to, we've got two more games we're going to discuss. We'll discuss this one more in length, so we'll go for that first. We've gone Wycombe 1, Sheffield Wednesday 0. Wycombe Wanderers finally won. Regan messaged me saying, this was the game I said I had that feeling that Wycombe were going to do it. But you didn't ultimately predict it, did you? So, or did you? No, you did. Did you?
I did. I did.
Draw. Oh, right. You did predict it. Anyway, Wycombe won 1-0, Regan. That's what I was to say. They won the game. And, I mean, we could talk about Sheffield Wednesday, but we've mentioned in blog pass, they have, since we heaped praise on them, they have lost every game, which looks worrying for them. But Wycombe, 1-0. They drew against Watford last week. Are they showing signs that they can stay up?
I'd like to think so, because the last few games they've played, they've shown signs that they can compete in this league. Because they did do well against Norwich, and they got undone by a bit of magic really from the free kick. But I think they deserved a point out of that against a relegated team. Watford, I've got to say, looking at the stats and looking at the highlights, Wycombe deserved a point, maybe even 3 from that game, which is weird to say.
Yeah. And
in this game, I saw the highlights of it, and I've got to say they just deserved it even more. Which is I'm not sure what's happening with Wycombe, because I can't really pinpoint anything because nothing's really changed. But they're just getting these results now, and they're putting in these performances, and they should have more points than they have, which is weird to say because the first few weeks they were possibly the worst team I've ever seen in the Championship. But now they look like, on their performances, they're like maybe a mid-table type performances, because the performances they're putting in are very admirable, and it's safety on the horizon. If they can string a few more results together and results around them keep going down, because if Sheffield Wednesday keep this up, there's no chance that they'll catch up to teams like Wycombe and that, because they've been awful, to be honest. But who knows? Wycombe could be safe. I don't know.
Would you think it'd be right to say, when we mention Wycombe in terms of trying to stay up, that yes, they did really well against Watford, and I think that'd be a bit of an anomaly. But do you think that they're going to have to rely really on beating the teams around them? And I know we often say that of staying up in most leagues, but the Championship is really unpredictable. Teams at the bottom can beat the teams at the top. It doesn't really matter who you beat as long as you beat them. But with the Championship being like that, but I think it's very different Wycombe this year. I think they're going to have to rely so much on beating those teams around them. They lost to Rotherham early in the season. They've now beat Sheffield Wednesday. They're going to have to start beating those lower league sides, I think, that are closer to them in quality. Because I've seen the game today, from the weekend, and they got 28% possession. And we spoke about that stat earlier in the season when they played Rotherham and the ball was in play for 35 minutes. It's clear to see how Wycombe want to play. They want to sit deep and they just want to soak up pressure because they maybe don't have enough quality to play on the ball. But do you think they can sustain that over a season, because against better teams, I know they did well against Watford, but against better teams, you can't let a Brentford, a Norwich have 75% of the ball, can you? And that's the thing. Like, so do you think Wycombe is all down to they're going to have to get maximum points against the bottom sides? Or do you think they do, like they should against Watford, have a chance of competing against the teams who are going to be in the higher echelons of the league?
I do believe that I agree with you that I think they need to beat the teams around them, but I'm looking at the teams around them at the moment, and there's not many I can see and say, yeah, I feel confident that Wycombe can beat them, because Derby are above them, and depending what Derby you come up against,
Wayne
you
Rooney
could get
Derby or Wayne Rooney less Derby, pretty much, isn't it?
against Nottingham Forest. I don't think they stand much of a chance. Coventry, I mean, we saw from Coventry, they're oh, hang on. Sorry, Fulham scored. My bad. I'm watching on this game. Fulham scored. I'm looking around. There's the teams down there. Cardiff, can't see them beating them. Barnsley at the moment, can't see them beating them. Obviously lost to Rotherham, and the only team really I can see around them beat is maybe QPR. But we saw QPR this weekend, and they get results. So I'm not really sure how Wycombe can get these points at the moment. If the table sorts itself out, and we clearly see a skill gap, because teams like Huddersfield and Luton, who are up there in the table, I expect them to slip down. And if we can get them at the right time, then sure, they can get the results. But at the moment, I don't know. It's going to be, may have to rely on good performances against better teams.
Well, yeah. Well, next up for Wycombe, we'll obviously get our predictions later, is away to Birmingham on Wednesday night. Now, that's a game with two teams who play similar ways. It's Wycombe. What Wycombe have to do, I'm sure they'll love that, because they'll go in there and they'll go, you want to play hard, you want to play in the air, you want to play slug it. That is what we do, and we can do this. And it'll just be down to whatever team work. I think that game is all down to who works harder in the game. So if Wycombe can beat them, they have to draw to Watford, beat Sheffield, starting to get some momentum there, and anything can happen.
Exactly.
Lastly, team that was predicted to be down there, was down there for a while, isn't exactly flying, but Barnsley have beaten Watford by 1-0. That's two bad results back-to-back for Watford, which is a bit concerning for them, you'd think, against teams who you'd expect to be right down there. But Barnsley have won again, and they're doing all right. It's a bit weird. Since Struber's left, they've got results, which was completely what we didn't think would happen.
Yeah, Barnsley have not lost since Struber left, which is incredibly strange. And the last time they did lose was when Struber was in charge, when they lost to Borough. So it's weird. It feels weird saying this, but was Struber a bad thing for the club? Was he like holding them back some way? Surely not, because since then, I mean, they absolutely rolled over QPR. They got a good draw against Millwall at the Den, and they got a good draw against at the time was an informed Stoke team. And now they've just beaten still one of my favourites has been promoted. So I don't really know what to say. I mean, they scored early and they managed to keep them out for the rest of the game. So
I think that's the most surprising thing. They kept the clean sheet against QPR. They kept the clean sheet against Watford, and we don't really sort of think of Barnsley as a team who keeps clean sheets. I think it'd be harsh to say Struber held back the club, because he obviously did so well to keep them up last season.
Oh, yeah.
But I do see a point in the fact that Struber was clearly unhappy at the club because he hadn't got the back end that he thought he deserved. And if he didn't get the back, was he putting his 100% all into it this season? Maybe he wasn't. You know, a lot of this time it comes to these teams who are down the bottom. And Barnsley know. They go into a season and know they're going to be down the bottom. You see it so much in the Premier League as well. Just changing managers to new voices of these players, and it's not sustainable. One time Barnsley will finally go down, or one time hopefully they'll make the right appointment and go up the league. That you can't stay there forever. But season after season, they'll you'll have to keep getting in these managers for now. But just a new voice, keep these players motivated, change the players where you can, and you're gonna have to do that. But I think Barnsley might be a bit of a, like I said, a new voice, pick themselves up, period, and they're going to sort of dwindle off again. But I mean, you can't argue that. They've got clean sheets. They've got a result. And they beat Watford, who I think will be concerned right now. Anyway, Regan, I see you're clearly overjoyed. I'm sure Fulham are probably winning 2-0 or something along there.
I'm sorry, Ola Aina has just scored an absolute worldie.
Oh, no.
I
Oh,
can't believe it. Anyway,
well, that is champ talk because he should be in the Championship.
He should, yeah.
Yeah, and probably both those seasons will be next teams will be next season. But predictions, Regan, how did they go for the weekend? Obviously, we didn't do them on a video, but I did sort of send mine in to you. How are we looking?
It was actually dead even until Wycombe Sheffield Wednesday, and that won me the week by 4 results to 3. I've got the ones here. I predicted Norwich beat Bristol City. You predicted Bristol City, and you predicted Swansea to beat Blackburn, which you won, and I said Blackburn, and we got Brentford to beat Luton and Stoke to beat Rotherham as the other two, and I've got Wycombe against Sheffield Wednesday, correct? So that was 4-3 to me in that as a whole, and that is 39 to 36, as you can probably see somewhere around here.
Somewhere up there, yeah, 39 to 36. Well, I'm still within touching distance, so
You're like 6 behind. You were 6 behind like 3 weeks ago, and now and then you were 2 last week. Now you're back to 3, so it can easily be done.
A long old season. But last week, I mean, we said it last time. But last week, this weekend's fixtures was weird. There was some weird results in there. Like I know that we said the Championship, and it's happened a lot around a lot of leagues with the behind closed doors. But stuff like, I mean, Barnsley beating Watford, like seriously, like that was just, I don't know how anyone's meant to predict that.
That ruined everybody's acca. That did.
Yeah, lucky I didn't put mine on. I got to 259. I was like, oh crap, I didn't put it on. So luckily for me. Anyway, we'll go into the predictions for this midweek game week, and then obviously we'll have another show later in the week for the weekend's fixtures. Let me get these little fixtures up. I know which one is first though, so don't know why I'm looking. Tuesday night, 7 o'clock kickoff. Brentford, Swansea City. Take the floor, Regan.
I fear for Brentford a little bit in this fixture because Swansea are looking like the team that they were at the back end of last season, because they kept a free score in Blackburn to no goals, which was quite frankly shocking, to be honest, because Swansea's defence is probably their weakest point. I said that in the last episode, but to keep a clean sheet against Blackburn, and they did against Stoke, who were quite free scoring themselves over the past few weeks. And if you want to test yourself against a free flowing scoring team, there's none better to come up against than Brentford.
How do you think, though? I believe I'm right. Yes, I am. How do you think Swansea's back three copes against Brentford's currently pretty prolific front three, though? Because a back three and a front three is often a weird matchup, isn't it?
It is, yeah, because especially with Brentford, you have a lot of attacking midfielders who like to join in as well. And usually the back three defenders are sometimes they're completely told to man mark the three to a man. Mm-hmm. So in that aspect, I do fear for Swansea a bit, because we know all of Brentford's midfielders are have incredible goal scoring capabilities, and they can join in attacks. And I think if Swansea don't get men back, I would fear for them a bit. And even though they're without, well, comparing us to last season, they're without Ollie Watkins and Ben Rama Brentford, but Swansea were without Van der Horn, who I think was a massive leader at the back for them during that playoffs. And I think Brentford have reinforced their attack, where I don't think Swansea have reinforced their defence. And I could see Brentford take that. So I'm going to back Brentford once again.
I'm going to back Brentford as well. I'm just going to go, I think this game is, we kept the clean sheet against Luton, and Luton were on decent form. So this is the thing. I don't think we completely crumble without Pontus Jansson and Christian Norgard. It was nice to see them at the Luton game. They looked like they're only a couple of weeks away, both of them. So that looks promising. But this has got goals written all over it. If really this should be 2-2s, 3-2s either way, because it's, I don't know, a Brentford team without their solid core, a Swansea team, like you said, without Mike van der Horn, who was their rock at the back, without Joe Rodon, anymore. The defence, to me, although they've kept out a really free scoring Blackburn, is still not up to scratch.
No.
Ivan Toney is on incredible form. Marcus Forss on incredible form. They have the 2 best minutes per goal ratios in the league, both of Brentford strikers. It's got goals written all over it, but I'm going to back my boys, and I'm going to say, like, along the lines, could be a 3-2 Brentford or something along those. And there's going to be a bit of beef because that is left over from the playoff semi-finals of last season. So it's going to be a tasty one. Hopefully Thomas Frank knocks out Steve Cooper, and we have the first death at the Brentford Community Stadium. Or maybe not a death. But next game. Oh, sorry, I did have it up there, but just lost it. It is Huddersfield, Bristol City. Yeah. City on bad form. Bad form. Huddersfield just came off the back of a 3-0 win against Millwall.
This is going to be an interesting game because there are some teams like Huddersfield that I think can get a good result out of Bristol City, because Huddersfield, the way they're playing now, is getting towards proper football, a proper style of football. And Bristol City just look a bit dysfunctional at the moment. And I'm not sure how they can cope. But we've seen already that there's times where Huddersfield look like what they did when they were in the Premier League, and they were terrible. And Bristol City, in some parts of games, look like the team that went on that brilliant start. So it's just a matter of which type of the two teams will come out and perform. This is actually a difficult one to call because Huddersfield are definitely the more informed team, and I think if they can beat a slow-moving, rigid team like Millwall by that much, I think they can do that against Bristol City. So I am going to back Huddersfield.
Boringly, I'm going to back Huddersfield too. I mean, a lot of people would have Bristol City down to favourites games, but I just think the way Huddersfield play and the way they frustrate sides and they press you and they do that. Bristol City, they're lacking in their midfield 3 at the moment. Bristol City fans, Andy Weimann got an ACL injury. He's going to be out for the season. They got a couple more injuries. Obviously, Mawson's knee injury in defence. And then midfield, without Joe Williams, who's still yet to come back, and with the sale of Joe Morrell, is looking like it lacks a bit of balance. And it looks like it's not Dean Holders clearly is not his first choice because of injuries. So it's sort of just they're playing the players who they have available in that position at the moment. And they got overrun by Norwich, and I think they're going to get overrun in midfield by Huddersfield. I see there being a goal, but I can see both teams scoring, but I'm going to go Huddersfield as well. The next game is Norwich Millwall. Millwall started the season well. They come off the back of a big loss. Norwich hitting form.
I think Norwich and Huddersfield play quite similar styles of football, where they like to actually play the game of football.
On front foot, yeah.
Yeah. And we saw exactly how a team like that did against Millwall last time in Huddersfield last week. So, and Norwich, no offence to Huddersfield, but I think even Huddersfield fans can agree that Norwich are better than Huddersfield. So with that, I'm going to, even though logic dictates it'll probably be something completely different, I'm going to back Norwich.
I'm going to back a draw. Now, in honesty, Norwich is the safe bet, but Norwich really impressed me with how they kept the ball against Brentford when I watched that game, obviously in full, and they went and won at a good Bristol City side. So they're in red-hot form. But Brentford could have been 3 or 4-0 up before Norwich even got their goal back because of the knockdowns of Ivan Toney and Ethan Pinnock. Now, Millwall are a team who are notoriously strong in the air. Norwich looked like an absolute disaster in the air. So I can just see don't get me wrong, a draw against Millwall is not a bad result, and I still think Norwich are going to keep up how they've been doing. And like I said, I predicted them to win the league at the start of the season. I'm just going to go a bit different. Stay away. I can see there is a weakness in Norwich's defence with high balls. I'm going to go draw. Next game is Sheffield Wednesday, Bournemouth. Sheffield Wednesday on terrible form, obviously still in minus points. Bournemouth with a bit of a surprise 1-1 draw at home to Derby. Thought they'd win that game. But still, for the most part, doing very well this season.
I think it's only logical to say that Bournemouth are going to win because Sheffield Wednesday's all 4 of their losses, well, 3 of them against Luton, Rotherham and Wycombe, and teams that would probably be around them later on in the season. they need to be getting results against those games, and they haven't really been good at all. And they're coming up against a team that will be in the complete opposite end of the table come the end of the season. And Bournemouth are really hitting a run of form. I'm going to say that the Derby one was a bit of a one-off, and I can only see this going one way. So Bournemouth.
Agreed. I'm going to go Bournemouth 2. Next game, Blackburn, Middlesbrough. I've heaped praise on Middlesbrough and Blackburn both this season, but Middlesbrough are currently above them in the league. Although most people would probably say Blackburn, you would have thought.
I can only hope this has goals because this is the game I'm covering tomorrow.
Is it?
So
I thought you were doing Cardiff. No, you're not doing Cardiff.
No, that is the lovely Welshman upstairs. I know, Welshman covering Cardiff. It's almost as if they only know Welsh teams.
Yeah.
You'd expect goals because it's Blackburn, and I say this every week, but last week they didn't score anything. But then on the contrary, you see Middlesbrough and you only expect one goal, if that. So it's really a flip of a coin to see, will Borough shut out Blackburn or will Blackburn roll over Borough? And I am going, I don't know, because this is quite tough because they're two pretty good teams at the end of the day. And they play very different style of football. But I am going to back, I can't predict who's going to win, so draw.
I'm going to go Borough because I think, like I predicted early in the season, Blackburn, good team, very good team on their day, but lack of consistency to get in those playoff places. And this might be one of those little patches where they lose a couple of games and then they'll go back to thumping sides. Kept out by Swansea. If you're kept out by Swansea, you're probably going to be kept out by Middlesbrough. I know that's not how the Championship works, but I'm going to use that logic. So I'm going to go Middlesbrough. Last of the Tuesday night games, before we get on to Wednesday nights, is Cardiff-Barnsley. In short, I'm going to say Cardiff. Not say I'm gone first.
In short, I'm going to say Barnsley.
Nice of us to disagree, isn't it?
Yes.
Next one, Wednesday night games. Reading, Preston. Reading still top of the league, but need to bounce back from losing to Coventry. Preston strugglers this season, but have scored a few goals on a couple of occasions.
The last two games for Preston have been against rigid teams, against Birmingham and Millwall, and they didn't fare well at all because they lost. But then they come up against these free-flowing attacking teams like Reading, and last time we did that with Huddersfield and they won. So it's going to be an interesting one because, like I said earlier, this could be the beginning of a slip for Reading because even though they do have a buffer, they are prone to these slips down the league. So it might be the start now, but Reading can score a lot of goals. But we saw Preston against Brentford, for example, they can both score as well. So I think this can be a very high-scoring game again. And when I say high-scoring, I can see Reading outscore Preston. So I'm going to say Reading.
I'm going to join you on Reading. I think they are slowly going to start to scale, but I don't think Preston is a team to beat them.
No.
The problem. Watford Stoke. Big game.
This can either go like one team is going to rinse the other team, or it's going to be a very boring draw. Watford aren't scoring as much as what I thought they would because you've got their players like Ismail Assar who's actually starting up front now because he wants to move.
I just have a little note on Ismail Assar. He is the most overrated player in the bloody English football pyramid. It's like I said, these Liverpool fans during the window when they were like linked to Assar, they're like, "Oh, just go out and get Sarr, he's the next Mane." What have you watched? Just because he scored against Liverpool, what did he do for the rest of the season? Absolute bugger all. This guy is not going to tear up the Championship. Decent player, don't get me wrong, he's not awful, but this is absolute myth that Sarr is this good of a footballer. I think Watford's best players, the likes of Will Hughes, Tom Cleverley, Ben Foster and net. And like João Pedro does look like a decent talent up top. But yeah, I don't think Watford's team is still a good team, should be top six, is as good as some people think it is.
I am going to, just because neither team are really scoring as much recently, even though Stoke, we've seen it with Stoke beforehand, none of them are really scoring as much, and I can't see that change. So I'm going to say Yeah, I think it's going to be a 1-1, so a draw.
I'll back a draw as well. I couldn't put anything between the teams, so you just have to go for it, don't you? The next one, absolute slogfest for is Birmingham Wycombe. We've already discussed it. Which way are you going to go for that one?
Karanka.
Ball. I'm going to go Gareth Ainsworth Ball. I don't know why. Got to be different, isn't you? Derby QPR. This sounds like a game of a lot of free-flowing football, but terrible quality.
This sounds utterly boring.
Derby QPR sounds like the complete contrast to Birmingham Wycombe.
Exactly. You expect stuff to happen from Birmingham Wycombe. You expect absolutely nothing to come from this game at all. I'm going to once again go off the fact that Wayne Rooney will be back this time because he didn't play last game either, and they still got a result. So I'm going to back Derby.
I just think you can't concede goals at the rate that Warburton sides do, and a competitive team. I mean, he had the one off of Brentford, and don't get me wrong, I loved Warburton when he was here, but we've seen with what Warburton sides, they concede so many goals, and they won 3-2 against Cardiff, yes, but it took a bloody screamer, and they still conceded 2 goals. I think Wayne Rooney's Derby wins this game. Nottingham Forest Coventry is the penultimate game of midweek.
See, if Coventry didn't win against Reading, I would have no doubt backing Nottingham Forest. But the way Forest are playing now, and the way Coventry are playing, it's hard to call. But I'm gonna keep going off the fact that Forest and Hewan are still trying to find their feet, and I think they're slowly getting up from the floor, and they're getting on their knees as such now, and they'll start to find the results soon. And if there's ever a team you can get results against, it'll be teams like your Coventrys and your Rotherhams. So I'm going to back Nottingham Forest.
I'm going to go to Coventry. I like Chris Hughton. Like I said, I still think with the long-term plan, getting Hughton in is a brilliant decision. But have started slow. The team looks a bit just doesn't look right. Coventry off the back of a win, be with confidence. And if this was Sabri Lamucci in charge, I know it's not. I could see this as being a really weird one where Coventry go and win 3 or 4-0. I don't know why. Just midweek games always produce something a bit weird. Something always seems to happen. So I'm going to go Coventry on this one. It won't be a smashing though because Hughton just won't allow that. And finally, Rotherham Luton, a game that could be played in the National League, League 2, League 1, and is somehow being played in the Championship.
I think this has slogfest written all over it, this one. I can imagine it's going to be pouring down with rain at the New York Stadium. The ground's going to be all muddy and everyone's going to be sliding all over the place and there's going to be fights and everything. That's what I can see from this game. And which team can I see outperform in these conditions? Because that's basically the only thing I've got to go off. I'm going to back Rotherham.
I'm going to back Rotherham too. Because I completely agree with everything you said. Awful conditions, Wednesday night. I mean, we haven't even looked at the weather. We don't know it's going to be awful conditions. We're just assuming because it's up north. Awful conditions, Wednesday night. Luton looked awful against Brentford, although Brentford did play well. Just think that the game sort of set up suits Rotherham. But that is our predictions this week. That is the end of episode 9, I believe, of Champ Talk. We'll have episode 10 later in the week. Once again, thanks to Subside for sorting us out. Naughty little number. Look on our socials for that. Bit of merch. Love it. I'll be repping it. But remember to like the video, subscribe to the From the Terrace podcast YouTube channel, leave us a rating on iTunes, and we'll see you in the next Champ Talk.